We're going to talk today about a touchy subject that's all over social media, and it has been for a few years now, and that's the opioid epidemic and the war on the opioids on drugs, right? Something you forget is every 10 to 15 years there's some kind of new drug epidemic. Before fentanyl, it was Oxycontin. Before Oxycontin, it was cocaine, crack. Before that, it was heroin. Before that, it was LSD. And back in the 50s, and before it was marijuana. And before that, it was alcohol. There's always some type of epidemic going on, right? And they're always starting these wars on them. And anything that proved anything is back during the 80s, the war on drugs did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. You remember, if you're my age, you remember always seeing about the crack epidemic, right? The 80s crack epidemic. And it didn't solve nothing. One thing you got to ask yourself is, how is this stuff getting into the country? You're going to have people say, well, it's illegal immigrants bringing it in. They're sneaking it in with them. For the amount to be on the streets of these drugs that we are seeing, it has to be coming in huge supplies. We're not talking a few people bringing a couple of pills across the border in their pocket, right? Or their prison pocket, right? We're not talking about that. So what makes money for the U.S. government? Well, they're fighting the war on drugs, right? It's almost like they have to allow so much in and then claim it's an issue and then start fighting it, right? Start fighting it. We got this epidemic, that epidemic going on with this drug or that drug. That amount of drugs does not secretly get into the country. It doesn't. There's no way that amount of drugs can come into the country and nobody know about it. There's no way. With as much technology as we have now, there's no way that amount is coming into the country, and it is not known before it gets here. How much of it is allowed to get into the country, and how much do they say, well, we need to capture this shipment so that it looks like we're doing our job, right? My thoughts on it is people are always going to do what they want to do, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. You take someone who's an addict, unfortunately they're always going to be an addict. A addict, if you're hanging around the same people you always hung around when you were doing the drugs, most times you're going to revert back into that situation, right? You're going to revert back. It doesn't have to be drugs. It could be drinking or anything like that. Myself, I don't drink alcohol no more. Not much. Every now and then you'll see me drink a little bit, but that's about it. And I don't hang around with the people that I used to drink all the time with because I'm going to drink, right? But I'm not a psychologist, a sociologist, or none of that. This is just my own opinions on what I've seen in my lifetime and personal experiences, right? That amount of drugs coming in the country is known. There's no way it's sneaking in. I don't care if they're digging tunnels 55 miles long, 5,000 miles long. With the technology we have today, they know it's coming in. They know where it's coming in, when it's coming in, more than likely who's bringing it in, and they allow a certain amount in. It's just that plain and simple. I've told you before, here in my area, there's a big push all over the United States to legalize marijuana. A huge push for it. I've said before, I don't smoke it. I have anxiety issues, and that stuff makes my anxiety 100 times worse than what it is. So I don't deal with it. I avoid that stuff, right? But here in my area, you get caught with, just say, a roach or a joint, right? Or a baggie with some little leaves left in it, little pieces of marijuana left in it. That's a drug paraphernalia charge and a drug charge. Well, it's a ticket. You get a ticket, right? What you don't realize is that ticket, you've got to go to court on it, and then you're going to be sentenced to pretty much probation for 6 months to a year. You're going to be put in a thing called drug court here, which is pretty much every day you have to call on the phone and they tell you a color, and if it's the color they gave you, you have to go pee in a cup to see if it's in your system. It's a money racket, right? See, it allows them to make money. Like if it was just a ticket, you go in and pay your ticket, right? However much the ticket is, here's your ticket. But no, if they can grab you and hold you for a year, I'm not talking about in jail, but hold you like in probation, color code, you're going to have to go to counseling too and take a class. That's money. That's money. That's what all this comes down to. I've told you, money makes the world go around. Let's say they cut out all drugs, right? They was able to stop every drug that come into this country. Every drug. It wasn't on the streets no more, it was gone. Well, then what do you do with all these police organizations that their sole purpose is to fight the drug problem? See, they have to allow so much in to keep their jobs. It's plain and simple. The stuff's not just accidentally getting here. It's not. It's a money racket. Anything to do 9 times out of 10 with the laws comes down to money. It's just the way it is. I know some of you out here are like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're an idiot, whatever. Perfect case example here. Most of y'all have heard of the country group Alabama. Well, their bass player, Teddy Gentry, got caught the county over sometime last year, I think with a joint. I think it was a whole joint they caught him with. You know, gave him a ticket, they took him to jail and done a mugshot photo with him and released him, right? Well, if it was me or you, just normal every day, you would get took to jail, more than likely. But then you have that whole year worth of spending money, right? What I mean is your probation fees, your color code fee. Remember, color codes where you call every day and there's a color, and if it's your color you have to go pee, then you got to pay for classes, this and that. Now, that's absolutely ridiculous, right? Ridiculous over a joint, but that's the law. But that also shows you they don't want these drugs gone. They don't want them completely wiped off where there's no drugs on the streets at all. Because then they don't have a job. They don't have an income revenue coming in from all the people they've caught and that's on probation, color code, or whatever they got them on, right? They're not making no money. And then you got all these police officers whose sole job is drug enforcement. Think about that. Think about that every time you hear we're having an opioid epidemic, we need to crack down on it. We're having a crack epidemic, a heroin epidemic, this or that epidemic. They won't crack down on it because if they crack down on it, people lose their jobs. Remember that. Remember it. Guys, keep your head on a swivel. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Protect yourself and your family at all times. At that moment, you're the only person that can do it. Keep prepping. Stay safe. Some of y'all may not like this video. Some of you may say, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you, at the end of the day, this drug war, drug issues all over the United States is allowed to happen because they need the income. Plain and simple, they need the revenue. Stay safe.